That's my little plug there. You don't have to pay me Starbucks, but you can if you want. Starbucks, hot water. You should advertise Starbucks, hot water. I drink hot water at Starbucks. Pretty much the thing I get the most is hot water. And I can't believe you can just come into Starbucks and just hang out. It's kind of weird. I guess they're making enough money depending on the broken economy and lack of competition. They can pretty much charge what they want for a coffee because there's nowhere else to go. That and other Zionist friends that help them out with no telling God knows what kind of financial deals they got to get this company off the ground and keep it going. They charge like $5 for a coffee. $5 for one of these. For one of those, or rather one of those, the nitro, frozen, or cold brew, $5. But right now, I am just having a running film going, and once I get enough subscribers, I will live stream. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to do that on Periscope anyway. I started recording because of I'm starting to record soundtracking of targeted individuals, and the song playing was Dream, 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 Dream. Whenever I want you, all I have to do. And that song is played a lot around certain targeted individuals. Just mockery, more mockery. You know, starting a YouTube channel and things like that. Just more mockery. They will play as long, as involved, and as low and belittling as they possibly can. And I've stopped caring about being ridiculed for pointing out subconscious poison and gaslighting. You know, it's very subtle gaslighting. That's what they do. But when it surrounds you, when it's absolutely everywhere you go, and when it's in every chain store and every store that's playing satellite radio, it's not coincidental. They're poisoning your mind. They're gaslighting you. But it's easy to tell. And so I just have a running film going today. This is not meant for any intention other than to record, just to see if anything happens, just to see if anybody is placed around me, any street theater is done here, or any trackers are placed around me today. And if they are, I'll just get them on camera and I'll try to analyze what they're doing. So they're getting really desperate now. They're using, at least around me, I can give you an example, using just little keywords in their conversations around me. Like today I've heard somebody talk about, say, I would just appreciate a little thank you. That was what they said. And it's always a clear sentence that I can hear perfectly. And these people were walking and they just said that one sentence randomly. It's like, you know, I would appreciate a little thank you. And then the next conversation I heard was somebody saying something about being desperate. So obviously me starting a YouTube channel and pointing this stuff out, it's, as I said before, having been a member of the military and a member of the intel services unpaid, they flip truths around. That's part of the Hegelian dialectic they use to flip truths around. So if you're asking for a reciprocation for a thank you, they'll tell you that they need thank you to make you question, oh wait, am I being greedy? Is this, should I just fall in line more? And if I fall in line more, will I receive that reciprocation? No, they're just desperate and they're throwing everything against the wall. So they're having to go more subtly with me since I'm recording it, and pointing out these subtleties is something that I will not back away from. Because if I back away from it, then I am playing their game and I am letting them abuse me over and over, and I'm not going to do that. And none of you should either. I understand that when I'm talking to whistleblowers, I maybe just be talking to maybe one other person or two other people, but like the starfish on the beach, or like whatever the story is. If I can help somebody, then I will. And obviously, if I can get my channel off the ground and if we can help each other, then that's good. Yep. That's all I'm doing right now is just recording. Yeah, the conversations that I heard this morning, and understand that when I interact with people, it's very rare. I mean, I walk around Austin by myself. So the chances that I would hear something in conversation that applies to my life, even vaguely, and just let alone the chances that I would hear a complete conversation with no response, perfectly formed, perfectly timed, just at the second that I'm passing the person, that is very rare, and that is very an odd and rare circumstance for me to actually hear that. It's either planned, or it's such an odd coincidence that it is beyond reason, beyond reasonable expectation. And since it is beyond reasonable expectation, it's not an accident. They are playing subtleties with you, just like a dream, 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 dream. And I remember what it was. It wasn't the word desperate. It was embarrassed. Somebody dropped something, I think, and as I passed by, the woman who reacted to it said, "I expected you to say you were embarrassed," and that's a pretty odd response. I expected you to say you were embarrassed, and that's just another reverse psychology. Instead of saying you should be embarrassed, it's always instead of saying I expected it normally. Instead of saying you were embarrassed or you should be embarrassed, they have to bring it up. They have to say the word embarrassed, and there's no other way to say it. They can't just look at the guy and just say, "You should be embarrassed." So that's what they do. They will do absolutely anything in their power to bring up the key word that they are assigned to say around you. So whether it's thank you, appreciation, you're being greedy by asking for any payment at all for your services for years, by asking for enough payment to survive, by asking for anything but poisoning and abuse and tracking. Why would you want to get paid for your years of service? Why would you not be happy with our abuse? Why would you not be happy with our starvation and our poisoning and our gaslighting? Why in the world do you want to survive? Why in the world do you want to prevent your people from being genocided and poisoned? As from their perspective, they want you to think that if you receive anything, if you are asking for anything, you are greedy, that you do not have the right to ask for or to receive anything. If you are in our society, if you are a and I'm not going to get racial here, but certain racial classes are alternatively used. It was the blacks decades ago. Now it's the whites in genocide efforts by Zionists, and it's no secret. But today it's male. If you were a male, and especially if you were a stand-up comedian, you have the right to disappear and die and nothing else. If you're asking for payment, if you're asking to be taken seriously, God forbid, if you are, for example, like Louis C.K. or many of the many males who are victim of the Me Too movement, if you are in any way asking to interact with the world around you or to reproduce or to live your life with your biological instincts, then you are a criminal, because biological instincts are no longer welcome here. We are not biological humans. We are machines, and we are here to run the machines. And if you do anything but run the machines according to the ways we want them to be run, which is through coerced slavery, where you have absolutely no right, as I said before, to receive anything but poisoning, because that's our operation right now. We are poisoning you and exterminating you and genociding you. And if you do not accept that genocide, that poisoning, then we will shame you. We will employ thousands of people to poison you and shame you and bully you and beat you down, just for the purpose of having you realize by any means necessary that you are nothing but our victim, and you will always be our victim. And if you try to be anything but, everybody will always remember you as a desperate weakling, because in the end, you will lose. That's their philosophy. You will lose. You will lose. That's their philosophy. And if you act as a loser, we will treat you as a loser. As one of my friends, I know this guy. He's a rapper. Says in his songs, "If you're acting like a bitch, we will treat you like a bitch," and that's their attitude. If you are pointing out a problem, then you are begging. Then you are desperate. You are complaining. Just like a lot of boomers will say to the younger generation, you are always complaining. If they point out issues, for example, animal cruelty. We tried for years and years to get animal cruelty passed as a felony. It took till 2020 and the extremely strong movement by the younger generation of resisting coerced tyranny in this country and ours. It took years to get that passed through the houses as a felony, and now it is. And that's just because they won't do it. The government won't do it. The houses, the legislative houses, the executive wing, and the military branches, they all work together. They will not do anything until it is absolutely beyond their ability to survive as a result of that they do it. And when you get staunch and when you start pointing things out, they will make fun of you. They will call you rigid. They will call you psycho. They will tell you to chill out, just like Obama just said, was pointed out on the front page on the Drudge Report. They're begging people to chill out now. And you would be amazed just how fast the feds go from 100 to 0 real quick. Real quick. They act really, really hard, and they bully you when they have millions of people together doing a little bit where they don't have to do very much, and they don't have to put forth much effort and take much risk at all, just like they do the same financially. But when they have any risk whatsoever, when they have any risk of danger to themselves, they beg and they beg, and they will start off by shaming, and when they get called in their shaming, they will back off a little bit, and then they will beg. These are confidence tactics. In other words, con tactics. Classic tactics to operate a Ponzi scheme, which, as you know, with the cooperation of the multiple wings of government, together with the fleecing of the middle class's money toward the bottom and the top, and then just destroying the bottom when they have no resources to fight back. It's not racial, it's class-based, and these are con tactics, classic con man tactics that they're using to keep up their financial con. And it is cultural, it is social, it is generational, but the core of it, the real purpose is economic warfare upon you. And it doesn't have to do with your philosophy, because they don't have a philosophy. The people who are doing this are rootless people. They are economically and socially and biologically rootless. They do not have a homeland. These are parasites, and I'm not saying anything about a certain race or religion or even a region of the world's people. They are a rootless nomadic people that exploit cons, and they have forever, and that's what they will do, and they will die doing it. That's why our current administrations, especially in our executive wing and legislative wing, are so dug in to resisting the resistance. And when it comes time for them to, for example, resist people they spent years pointing out the flaws of, for example, operating the impeachment, they will resist the impeachment then, because they have to exist in that in-between stage of we're going to another form of thinking. We're not going to operate this resistance all the way, and we're not going to operate the previous way of standing firm in our beliefs that we were just talking about maybe a year or two ago philosophically to our voters. We're going to change that up now, and we're going to always be the not necessarily the progressing group that represents the population, but just always the group that changes to keep you catching them. And when you, as a people, when you, for example, do speak collectively as a whole about resistance, about, for example, social resistance or changing of moral codes, then they will just back up and they will take that as their philosophy. They don't have any sort of base philosophy to keep up with you, to compete with you, so they will just adopt yours. Oh, okay. The song Can we just talk? This is begging. This is classic begging. Soundtracking. This is what I was hoping to catch. And probably a little bit of saying, chill out, you're talking too much. People are going to think you're crazy if you're pouring too much on them. They don't operate that quickly. Basically, calling my audience dumb. And I have always operated by the philosophy of don't underestimate the audience. That's just a classic, again, subliminal. If it's more important for them that they make you doubt what they're saying and make you question yourself than it is that they actually point something out that they want you to realize. So if you can have multiple conclusions from something, are they calling my audience dumb, or are they begging me to stop? Well, I don't know. I know one thing, though. I'm confused and I'm stressed about it because they're communicating with me and they're my enemy and I'm their enemy and they surround me and they're all powerful. That's the core of what they are trying to do, is make you take one foot for a second off of your foundation and try to feel out another foundation, not long enough to actually get a stance on that new foundation, just long enough to make yours shaky. And meanwhile, they strike at your foundation and try to crack it and try to break it so you fall. They don't have a foundation. But this is what I do. This is what I studied, so I'm not going to stop. This is what I devoted my life to, so anybody can say anything they want. It's always playing on your biological desires. For example, I was lucky enough to have a mother who was very literal, I guess you could say dry, fact-based, logic-based. And so I never really get pulled very much by their attempts to use sympathy, to call me too rigid or call me a bully or something like that. But they will still try because that's all the option they have. Is maybe one day you will feel like you're lacking something in your life, and so therefore they will surround you with females and surround you with the feminine when you're being too rigid, when they feel like you are pointing out too much and you are basically being too masculine. They will shame you and they will make fun of you, and they will send some street theater around you to use some body language to ridicule your. How people will bow their arms out and kind of make a little face like they're, I think I'm the king, and yeah, that's what they'll do. They'll do that like they're a 12-year-old child, and they just don't have any other options. So if they did, they would do something else, or they might, for example, if you were from say you're from a violent area, a high gang area, they will challenge your social exposure, and they will put things around you that you are unfamiliar with, and they will just use as tiny little subtlety as possible just to throw you off a little bit. So they might bring something around you that is common from their area that people are used to. Let's just say people from a foreign country who you're not used to hearing the accent of, and they will bring that person around you, and the second you look at them and kind of wonder where they're from and just are generally experiencing something you haven't experienced before, they will ridicule you for it, and they will have somebody else on the side talk about make fun of where you're from, or make fun of your lack of exposure, or say something about, maybe they'll call you a redneck, or maybe they'll call you a redneck or a simpleton, or say something about I guess some people just aren't very experienced, and maybe some people should get out more, or something like that. Just little subtleties, little literally 11-year-old level of effort and intellectualism sort of subtleties. They use this because, as I said, the Hegelian dialect that they operate by, they do not understand what it truly is. The people who are further initiated into the circles of intel that actually operate these things, we know what it is, and they don't. And they bought it hook, line, and sinker decades ago, and they must operate by it. if they don't keep operating by that dialectic that uses a con game to rule the classes, then they will break their whole entire support army in half, actually into thirds. So if they stop, they will break their support army into thirds. I don't care about any inner reactions to my, as people say, over-giving. Philosophically, I believe in over-promise and over-deliver. I'll always give you the straight facts and the straight dope when it comes to philosophical and cultural, economic, political tactics. So I'm noticing that I just had a little change happen in the environment around me, and that's not surprising. When I begin recording, I notice people change their positions, change their tactics, and their physical positions. So yeah, that's what happens when you start exposing things. Things change, and from now on, Americans should, and citizens in general, and this comes from knowledge of specific strategies and who the target is. People should look at their world as an engagement, as an opportunity to engage, as a target-rich environment. Not physically. I'm not saying pick up weapons. I'm saying pick up weapons of logic and pick up weapons of thinking and really of peace, of more peace, which is through superior firepower of logic. Look at their world as an opportunity to exercise our cultural and educational prowess that we have fought hardly for through a poisoned education system and through over-medication and through over-propagandizing through our entertainment structure. Meanwhile, we were actually learning things the whole time. So we should treat our culture around us as an opportunity to engage and never fold. As our teachers told us, and as my favorite teacher told me, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. We should just never yield. And if people call us crazy and people say that we're trying too hard, then we should just either try harder or try just the same hard level that we're currently trying, and just never give up. As I'm sure a lot of you are being gaslighted by your families, most of all, they will use whoever's close to you, and they will, if you don't have anyone close to you, they will put people close to you. So it's a good thing now that I have you guys to be close to me, and we can be, if a home is where the heart is, and a family protects each other and takes the best of what they are and spreads it and makes it thrive and believes in it and strengthens it and protects it, then that's a family, and we can be a family. Because blood these days, for a lot of people, can not mean very much. For me, it does, but I've seen a lot of families that are not interested in preserving or even identifying who and what they are, biologically or culturally or philosophically. And I do think that is important to identify and to defend. I think that if you're constantly reviewing the environment around you to determine what invading hordes and what the rulers who surround you want you to do in order for you to survive, I find that is by definition weakening you, weakening that you believe in, weakening your kind and weakening your philosophy, and that at the core of it, you are assuming that they have some philosophy they want you to be closer to, but they don't. You are an enemy to them. And if you are an enemy to them, then you will always be an enemy to them. If they don't have a core philosophy and they are treating you as we are being treated, then we should study them, and we should keep operating by our logic and keep moving forward. We are not responsible for the way they have engaged us. And by they, I mean our federal government, our entertainment structure, our cultural apparatus that is surrounded by our federal government, all wings of which are the same, are cooperative wings of the same efforts. We should, where there is no competition among them, we should introduce competition. Where they feel like we should feel our opportunities and our efforts will be wasted, we should introduce efforts and opportunities and conquer them. And when we conquer them, others will follow. And as the philosophy goes, if we build it, they will come. always. I started this off just to record some audio around me, and it turned into productive, cultural, philosophical opining, and that's always positive. I find that if we step off into those unfamiliar territories that are unmapped, we find that we can conquer the dragons there. We find a lot in those unmarked areas.